Hello, my name is Ryan Harp, and this is assignment number 1 for FTT 111, Firearms Inspection and Troubleshooting. So in today's assignment, the first thing that we need to do is clear our weapon, ensure that there is no live ammunition anywhere in the workspace, and ensure that the weapon is safe and operational with a functions check. So what we're going to do with that one, so we're going to ensure that there's no source of ammunition. So for the weapon we're going to be using today, we're using a BCM Recce 14, which is a version of AR-15 made by Bravo Company Manufacturing. So we're going to ensure that we remove any source of ammunition. So in this case, the magazine. So the magazine is removed from the firearm. I don't like to store weapons with magazines in them in my house. The next thing that we want to do is ensure that the safety is engaged. So on this weapon, it's got a single side safety instead of ambidextrous. So in the safety selector switch is currently in a safe position. Rotate it back and forth, making sure that we have the safety fully engaged. Next thing we want to do is both visually and physically inspect the chamber. So I like to look away, look again. Then I want to physically inspect that chamber, make sure there's nothing in there. So I also want to go up the magazine well until I can see my fingers, making sure that there's nothing left in the magazine well, nothing that's going to sneak into the chamber. We want to make sure there's no live rounds. So in the work area, what we have is just a Sharpie, empty magazine, 2 Magpul dummy rounds, my nice little piece of artwork, and that's it. So we have no live ammunition anywhere near the work area. Should always be stored in a separate area, never in the same place where you're working on or manipulating a weapon and you don't have any intentions to shoot or destroy anything. So the cycle of operations on this weapon is going to start or stop in a different place depending on the current status of the weapon. So right now we've got the bolt lock to the rear, safety engaged. So to start this cycle of operations from here, which would be how I would start any range day, is we're going to load the magazine, which we did with 2 of those dummy rounds. So all we have is 2 Magpul dummy rounds loaded into the magazine. We're going to insert that magazine, that source of ammunition, into the firearm, ensuring the weapon is still on safe. What I would normally do is just release this bolt, and that's what we're going to do for this first round, and allow the bolt to slam forward. So with that bolt slamming forward, there's going to be a couple steps that are going to happen in the cycle of operations. So in the cycle of operations, when that bolt slams forward, the bolt carrier group and the bolt are going to drag across the top of the magazine, picking up a round, moving that round up the feed ramps into the chamber. As that pressure continues forward, the bolt face is going to engage with the chamber, and once the bolt face comes up against that chamber, there's a cam pin in the top of the bolt carrier group, which is going to force that bolt to rotate, locking the lugs and locking the chamber. So at this point in time, we have allowed the bolt to ride forward, picking up that round. It is currently locked into place. Our next stage in the cycle of operations is firing. So before we test the firing mechanism of the weapon, we want to ensure that the weapon does not fire on safe. So we've got the weapon on safe still. Now this is what we want to do. We want to pull the trigger. Should give little to no movement, ensuring that weapon does not fire on safe. Now keeping the weapon pointed in a safe direction, even though we only have dummy rounds, we have no live ammunition. Accidents happen, things get missed somehow, some way. We're taking every precaution to make sure we don't, but we keep the weapon pointing in a safe direction. So we're going to rotate that safety selector switch from safe to semi. When that switch is rotated, the weapon is now capable of firing. So we're going to pull the trigger. As the trigger pulls, the noise you hear is the hammer releasing from the sear and hitting the firing pin on the back of the bolt carrier group. That firing pin would then strike the weapon's or the round's primer. The bullet would then move down the barrel. The gases from that round would continue to push that bullet until it exits the barrel, but then the gases through the gas port in the barrel would feed back into the receiver, forcing this weapon to continue its cycle. So when the gas would push back, the first thing that would happen is the bolt would move back just a little bit. So as that bolt moves back, it begins to unlock from the chamber. So when the bolt moves back and unlocks, you can feel the cam pin rotate, allowing the lugs to realign with the chamber and allowing it to come out of the chamber. So as it continues back, it extracts that round. You can feel the extracting, that pressure on the round. So as the rearward movement continues, it'll simultaneously cock that hammer back, which was that click that you just heard. So right now I'm going to keep pressure on the trigger so we can test the sear, and we're going to continue back until the round has moved past its point and ejects. The magazine source of ammunition is going to, using spring power, push the next round up. The bolt is going to drag across that round, pushing it up the feed ramp into the chamber. So then right here, the bolt face begins to engage with the chamber, and the forward momentum causes it to lock. In this situation, we don't have enough forward momentum because I was holding the bolt carrier group back, not allowing the spring force to drive it all the way forward. So we're going to use the forward assist to ensure that the next round locks into the chamber. So using the forward assist, what we did there was push this bolt carrier group forward, which drives the bolt into the chamber, and then that continued momentum forces that cam pin to rotate on its axis, locking the round. So right now we're going to release the trigger. We're going to feel that the sear engaged. You can also hear it. At this point in time, you've taken up any slack that you've had out of the trigger just by releasing it slowly. So the cycle would continue, the round would be fired. After the firing, the momentum brings that bolt back, it begins to unlock, and then the extraction begins. And as the extraction continues, it reaches its point, cocks it back, the round is ejected, the bolt cycles back forward. Right now the magazine's got it stopped. So because we have a dry magazine, so it is caught onto the round. So we'll release and remove the source of ammunition, move the weapon from semi to safe, ensure that the chamber is free and clear. And that is the cycle of operations for the AR-15.